Good evening, and welcome to a late night study session. At least it's very late here where I am at. It's well past midnight, and I'm drinking tea instead of coffee. It's way too late for coffee at this moment. But the reason that I'm shooting this late at night is because I just played a very nice game in my local chess club. I had the white pieces. I won against a fairly strong opponent, and I wanted to show you how this game went. So I have my score sheet here, and I had the white pieces, so you will see this from my perspective. I of course put e2, e4, this by test, and my opponent played the Scandinavian defense. I captured on d5. This is the main move, of course. And here black can capture with the queen or put their knight on f6. I'm a little bit more afraid of the latter, but this is the main move which my opponent chose, putting the queen in the center of the board very early on. I put my knight on c3, attacking this queen, and it went to a5. Once again, this is the main move. Here white has a few different options, and I chose to put my bishop on c4, looking to put this pawn not on d4 but only d3, and then put my other bishop on d2. Black put his knight on f6, and I continued with my plan, d3. Now came bishop g4, and here I did not remember if I was supposed to go f3 or go knight f3, and I haven't actually analyzed this game with an engine yet, so I still don't know what move is correct. I chose in the game to go here with my knight in order to just keep developing, maybe getting ready to castle kingside. Here my opponent put his pawn on e6, looking to develop this other bishop, and I decided that I did not want this bishop hanging around making this pin anymore. So I kicked it once with h3, and once the bishop went back to h5, I did it once again with g4, and the bishop of course went back to g6. Okay, so I gained a little bit of space over here. The downside is that the kingside castle does not look as safe anymore. But I thought, okay, I can always go for the queenside castle instead. So here, if I remember correctly, let me just check, I put my bishop on d2, eyeing this black queen. And typically this queen wants to go back on this diagonal. So my opponent put his pawn on c6. Now I can move this knight to any square that I want with a discovered attack on the queen. But I couldn't quite make any of the moves work right now. Any knight move the queen can just drop back. So instead I decided to develop yet another piece, queen e2, adding some pressure on this e-file where the black king is standing, and opening up for the queenside castle option. Okay, my opponent put his other knight on d7. I think this was a good move because I was actually looking at a knight e5 to attack this bishop, but now if I go knight e5, black can of course capture. They have both a knight and a queen eyeing that square. So instead, I wasn't quite ready to castle, or could have castled, of course. Maybe it would have been a perfectly fine move, but I wasn't sure I was going to castle that side, and I wanted to add some pressure on black's position. So I put my knight here on d4, looking to attack this pawn. I can actually show you that I was considering to capture on e6 already now. I can just show you what I looked at. I looked at this move. Black, of course, has to capture back. And then I would be able to capture with a check. And okay, the king can move, and this is actually what I was the most afraid of. Because if bishop e7, I thought I might have something like knight. Oh, that doesn't work actually. What was I thinking about here? I know I was thinking about something. Maybe, was this what I was looking at? Doesn't really work. The queen can just capture. I thought I had this attack on the queen, but if the queen can just capture, it doesn't really work at all. Okay, so probably it was good that I did not went for this line. It's just something that I looked at and thought, looked interesting at least. I would be able to gain 2 pawns for the bishop, but it shouldn't be enough. So that's why instead I played this knight d4 move, adding another piece, and now I might be threatening to capture here. And my opponent here, he played a move that I actually hadn't considered at all, and I think it was a good move. He put his queen on e5, trying to make a trade. And I'm just gonna take a sip of my tea while I want to ask you, if you have the white pieces here, do you want to trade queens, or would you prefer to keep the queens on the board? And what would you then play in this position? Any ideas? Maybe you found the move that I played, bishop e3, avoiding the queen trade. I still thought that I had the better chances with the queens on the board, and also the queen here, she can be a little bit vulnerable still. Something like f4 might be coming. So after this, my opponent put his bishop on b4, making a pin on this knight. And I decided to attack the queen with f4. The queen does not have a whole lot of squares. She could, of course, drop back this way, but I think that would be a little bit passive. So what he played instead was queen a5, where it came from, but now it makes more sense because I no longer have a bishop here attacking the queen. So here I considered to go back with the bishop, but then I thought, maybe he would just trade, maybe his queen would drop here. I actually don't remember why I didn't play it. Maybe I just thought that this was more fun, what I did play, because here I decided to push my pawn to f5, attacking this bishop, and the bishop doesn't really have a whole lot of good squares. I can tell you that first I was looking at this move, but I think this is perfectly fine for white because, okay, it's a check. I capture back, and once black capture with the queen, it looks like a double attack. But I can probably move my king here, and then this bishop is really in some trouble. So, and I don't know, my king might not be so bad here and have to, maybe this king is actually worse placed. I'm not quite sure if this is a correct assessment, but that's the one that I made. So let's see, here. Okay, so f5 was the last move that I played. And then he did something that I hadn't even really considered. He captured the pawn. Okay, the reason that I thought this was not really an option is of course because this king right now is just in, it looked like so much danger. Like I can move my bishop to any square and it will be a discovered check, discovered attack. But I couldn't really find any good places to put it. I can't really, I wish I could go down here and attack the queen, but it doesn't work. And if I go here or here, I thought that black would just maybe be able to move the king and then be threatening rook e8, because my king and queen, they're also a little bit weirdly placed. They're kind of in, like if a rook came to e8, there could be some deadly pins in this e-file. So I couldn't find any discovered attacks that I was happy with. And then I played this move g5. And I thought for a long time before I played this, and I'm not sure if it's a good move or not. What I had seen was that one of the most logical responses, knight d5, does not work. And that's luckily what my opponent played. But I was a little bit scared of some other moves. One of them actually being, what if black just ignores this and castles? That's something that I was kind of nervous about. Because while this sacrifices, does sacrifice a piece, it does, I mean, at least black gets his king to safety and my king is still standing there. And I thought something like a rook e8 with the threat of going f4. I thought that looked dangerous. I'm not sure, maybe it's completely fine, but my issue really is that a castling kingside is just so, like there's no protection over here. And if I castle queenside, black will be able to capture on c3 and also kind of ruin my kingside or my queenside structure. So that's something I was a little bit nervous about. But I thought, okay, it does take a little bit of courage for black to give up this knight. And my opponent was pretty fast to put his knight here. Another move that I thought black should consider is going here with the bishop, attacking my queen. And then I thought maybe I could drop back with this knight, but I'm not really sure about this variation. He put his knight here, and now I'm very proud of the move that I found. It's a lovely little tactic. It's quite difficult, so you can pause the video if you want to find it. If not, if you just prefer to see what I played, because I'm fairly sure that this is actually working. I couldn't find any good responses for black after this move. Knight captures c6. The idea behind this move is to free up the bishop to go to b6 with this discovered attack that I was talking about. Then the queen would be giving a check to the black king, and the bishop in the meanwhile would pick up the black queen. This is working now because this knight is blocking the queen from going here. So black really cannot capture this and has to come up with something else. Maybe you say, oh, what about this check? Then white will not have time to play bishop b6, and this is correct, but then we can play this move instead, which is kind of cute, I think. Answering a check with a check. And here black would have to move the king, maybe put something in between, but in next move white is simply going to pick up this queen on a5. So that does not work at all. And I think my opponent played the best move after capturing on c6, which is to capture with the knight on c3. Now, if I capture the queen on a5, they can capture my queen on e2, and I thought maybe this would be equal, but at this point I am looking at something more. I want to win this game. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna capture back on c3. Capturing here with a check still does not work because of bishop d2. So black took here instead. I think this is a good move. And okay, I could capture immediately on b4, but then maybe black would be able to take back, and no, yeah, because it's with a check. So here looks like I'm winning the queen, but the queen can drop back. And then it's just been a lot of trades. Actually, I think white is down a pawn. So I wanted to do something else. So let's see. What was the position? I think this was the position. Yeah, so they just took a knight here. And instead of capturing here, I played this move. The famous discovered check that I have been preparing for such a long time. And black can't really block it with anything, or if they block it, I can just capture. They can't go here with the king, so this is kind of forced. And then I want to stop any rook e8 pinning my queen, so I go here, checking this king. The king can only go here or here. He put his king here in order to still threaten rook e8, but then I gave this check, and the king now has to go back to the eighth rank, because if it goes to b7, I can capture on d7 with a check. So he went back to d8, maybe hoping that I would be satisfied with a repetition, but at this point I was fairly sure that I would be able to win some material. I captured here on b4 with an attack on the black queen, and here I think my opponent made a mistake. I think they should have maybe just made a retreat move with the queen. Something like here maybe. Of course it's still a bit uncomfortable because these two bishops and the queen should be kind of strong, but of course my king is also not so safe here. So something like this, and I think the game is not over yet, though I do like my position with white. But instead, my opponent did something that sometimes is very smart. He made this intermediate move, giving a check with the rook. And now I saw a way, a nice little tactic, to make sure that I win some material. So take a look and see if you can find it. I can give you one hint, which is to look for checks. So does white have any checks in this position? Make sure to look at all of them. Found any checks? There are a few checks, of course. The queen could go here, 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 or this bishop could go here, but the one that I chose, also the queen could go here. I made this one. giving a check to the black king, while also just sacrificing the queen, but it's a very temporary sacrifice. My opponent captured with a check, and I captured back, and here's the point. This is also with a check. So I just, I lost a queen, but I gained a rook. Now I'm losing a bishop, but winning a queen. So this is the, I can show like this. This is the trade that happened. So I won a rook and a queen. My opponent won a queen and a bishop. And of course, the queen and the rook should be the better deal. So after capturing his queen on a5, I was really quite sure that I was going to win this game. But we still played a lot of moves before he resigned, and he shouldn't resign yet. He still has some active play, as you'll see soon. He put his rook on the open file, and I put my king on d2 in order to get a connection between the white rooks. Then my opponent tried to activate his king on d6, and I played this move h4, protecting this pawn, also placing them on dark squares so that this bishop won't be able to attack them, and of course threatening to go h5 and trapping the bishop on g6. He avoided this and put his bishop on h5. Let's see, this is the second time the bishop goes to h5. Here I played a move that is kind of like a principled move, so I wanted to explain it a little bit. Whenever you have two rooks and your opponent only has one, it very often makes sense to trade one pair of rooks. Because here, if we look at the position, black has one piece that can move like a rook, one piece that can move like a knight, and one piece that can move like a bishop. Whereas white actually, and then of course a king, white only has pieces that can move like rooks or bishops. So black actually has more functions in their pieces, more different functions, if that makes sense. So by trading, because I played this move, if I remove these two rooks, black no longer has anything that can move like a rook, but white does. So that's often a good idea to do. And my opponent probably knew about this. He did not want to trade rooks, so he put the rook here in e8. And I thought for a few minutes here, because I'm up an exchange. I have a rook for a knight, which is good, but it's not won yet, and I wasn't quite sure how am I going to convert this game. And then I thought, okay, we're kind of getting in the end game now, and something that's very important in end games are passed pawns. Here we have a passed pawn, a pawn that cannot be stopped by any of the white pawns. But I actually don't have any passed pawns yet, and I wanted to create this. So I put my rook on b7, looking to win this pawn here. And then of course this a pawn could become very dangerous. The reason that I didn't play this immediately, that I took a little bit of time here, is because black does have this check on e2. And I cannot go back to d1, then black would be able to move this rook with a discovered attack from the bishop. But I can go to c1 or even c3, which is what I chose. I think it looks a little bit more active. And here, kind of a race began. Black pushed his pawn. I captured here, gaining my own passed pawn. And he played knight e5, gaining control over this square and also attacking my bishop. But I wasn't so afraid of this. I really thought that I should keep my focus on this passed pawn that I've got, so I pushed it one square closer to promotion. My opponent did the same thing, f3. And I now played a little bit of a multi-purpose move. I placed my rook on b7, looking to, of course, move forward, but also maybe going back to b1 to kind of prevent any promotion on the f1 square. Okay. My opponent was kind of scared, I think, of this oneer over here. So he put his knight back on d7. Kind of a passive move, really, but getting ready to get the rook back here to control this square, which is what happened. Because after knight d7, yes, I just pushed, almost getting a new queen, and black was just in time to stop this. Rook e8, and here I was very happy because I just forced these two black pieces that were previously very actively placed. I just forced them back, so this one shouldn't be that scary anymore. d4 was the move I played, and this was done both to keep this knight out of these squares and to make this bishop cover the f1 square and maybe even try to win the f-pawn at some point, which is, you'll see this in just a moment. d4, my opponent put his rook on a8, blocking this pawn, but of course the rook is very, very passive here on a8. I played bishop d3, looking to go here, putting my rook here, and winning this pawn. That's all I had in mind. I thought if I can just win this pawn, I'm gonna win the game. There will be no more counterplay for black, and probably he will resign. So after bishop d3, my opponent put his bishop here in g4. I continued with my plan, attacking this pawn, looking to go here and win it. f5, not a move that I had looked at. He wants, of course, my bishop to drop back so that I am no longer attacking the f-pawn. But I decided to just capture en passant. I hope you know this move, but if the pawn skips a square when it makes a double move, then you can capture it on that square if you have a pawn that's threatening it. So I took the pawn like this, and he captured back with the knight. I cannot capture here in g7 because he will take the bishop with a check. So instead I just went here with the king, protecting my bishop. And what did he play here? Oh yeah, he decided to go here to f2. Just one square from promoting the pawn, but now it's on a dark square, so it's going to be very hard for him to keep it, especially after this move, rook f1. Rook f1, and yeah, I'm winning the pawn in a matter of very few moves. There's really nothing he can do. If he capture my bishop, I will just take back, and then next move I will capture the pawn. If he does anything else, if he moves the rook here, that might be worthy of consideration, but I don't really think it's a problem because the rook can never go away from this rank because this pawn is still so close to promotion. So he decided to go for, I think he gave a check now, didn't he? Yeah. Bishop e2 check. Kind of a fancy idea because once I capture here, he can capture my bishop, threatening a fork on g3. But it doesn't really matter because now I put my king on d3, attacking the knight. If he goes rook e8, I can promote the pawn and he has to recapture, and then I can win the knight, being up a full rook. And if he put his king here on d5, I would be able to give a check with the c pawn, then the king would have to go back and I once again would be able to capture the knight. So he really has to move the knight. He put it here on f6. Doesn't really matter where he put it because now I capture on f2. And this move, winning his passed pawn, was actually the last move that I played because in this position he put out his hand and he said, I resign, and he also said, well played. And that made me very happy because he's a little bit of an elderly, very strong player. He's a master. He has a little bit more than 2,000 in FIDE, and it always makes you happy when your opponent is, you know, not being a sore loser, but is actually saying that it was a nice game. And I think it was a nice game. I'm a little bit curious to see if the chess engine will agree with me. I think I'm gonna wait until tomorrow, and then tomorrow I will check if I made any mistakes, if I could have played anything better. I might look up a few things in the opening that I wasn't sure about. And yeah, for now I think I'll just turn this off and go to sleep. Whenever I lose a game of chess, I sometimes, almost always, get nightmare, but when I win I have sweet dreams. So I hope you will too. It was a pleasure showing you this game, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed playing it. Bye and have a good night's sleep.